Morning, friends. Today we will continue our discussion of base and superstructure in the writings of Karl Marx, primarily in Das Kapital or Capital Book 1. But as I did in the last class, I'll give a very short introduction about Karl Marx, the sociological theorist. There are multiple interpretations of key texts of Durkheim, Weber, and Gmail, who is also pronounced as Gmail. But Marxism has entered into political imagination as well as global culture, primarily after the First World War, but in a more sophisticated way after the rise of post-modern culture, post-modern ideology, and post-modern social sciences since 1969. As a result, we have a profoundly distorted, oversimplified, and theoretically reified concept of Marx and his works. The reason is that, unlike the other theorists, primarily by Durkheim and George Simmel, but also to a later extent of Max Weber, Karl Marx and his writings not books but passages and interpretations of the specific passages of Marxist writings by Marx himself. A large number of people are aware about Marx than about other sociological theorists. And I have also experienced during my teaching to your batch that some of you have also been victim of non-academic social imagination about Marx and Marxism, both in positive and negative ways. As elsewhere in the global village, in this class also, there are people who like or dislike Marx without reading his original works. If not in original, then at least in reliable translations. In that sense, Karl Marx is a popular figure. He is an icon. He is a mobilizing factor in discussions. And here he transcends the academic boundary. In this situation, Marx is perhaps the most problematic of all theorists for a new student of sociology and social sciences. Therefore, I request that all the students of this class, this is a humble request, all the students of this class should suspend any knowledge which they already might have of Marx and about his text before they were enrolled in this class. This is my humble request to all of you with folded hands. Please suspend your earlier understanding of Marx and his works. You need not be a bhakta of Karl Marx or an opponent of, Shatru of Karl Marx, like there are in China about Xi Jinping or in Russia about Vladimir Putin or in India about Narendra Modi or Indira Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru or Mahatma Gandhi or B.R. Ambedkar. I am a very, very simple teacher of classical sociology. For the first time I am using the word teacher. So far I have been using the term student. I am a very humble student of sociological theory, classical sociological theory. And I expect from all of you that you will suspend your unfounded understanding, that is your earlier understanding, including your understanding which were made during your undergraduate classes, because so far as I know, none of your graduate teachers in India or anywhere else read the Sociologist in the original. And they are fortunate, because once you do not read the original text, you have the liberty of having any view or the opposite of view, that is ideology or opinions. Compared with Durkheim, as we will see next week in our fourth class on Marx. As I said, I will give 2 lectures on base and superstructure in the writings of Karl Marx. And then I will give two lectures where the view of Karl Marx will be contrasted with the view of Max Weber in particular, but also with the views of Immanuel Kant and his followers, including the academic disciples. Yeah. Therefore, I will what I am saying just now will come not today or tomorrow or day after, but it will come, on next Monday, that is in the 4th class. I am repeating my sentence. Compared with Durkheim, Marx had a comparatively sophisticated concept of society, which he saw as structured in a more complex way than the Durkheimian concept of mechanical or organic solidarity is. However, the same cannot be said about Marx's concept of state, market, or the military establishments. I said this because you should not be in delusion that I am a bhakta of Immanuel Kant. I am not a bhakta that is, a religious follower of either Immanuel Kant or Karl Marx, nor I am an opponent of the sociology of Max Weber. My only problem is my knowledge of 6 European languages. I am saying this is my problem because since I have read them in the original, all of them, Marx, Weber, Durkheim, Gmail, Italian sociologist, Wilfred Pareto, and many others. Therefore, I find difficulty when in sociological discussion people make their statements in seminars and panels and classrooms without reading the whole book from back to back, only on the basis of their class notes 30 years ago or their favorite commentary. Okay. Like Auguste Comte or Comte, or just Comte, as the French say, and Immanuel Kant, Marx too developed the idea of a society which existed sui generis, SUIGENERIS. This is a term which Immanuel Kant used used many times, and I have also used this concept in my first phase of lectures. Please remember, I'll explain it on Monday. I'm just giving you an overview. Like Comte and Durkheim, Marx too developed the idea of a society which existed sui generis, but he conceived of it in a very different way, emphasizing the material conditions of people's lives. Here, most people make a sin, not just a crime, of superimposing the views of Friedrich Engels, Vladimir Lenin, or other Marxists that Karl Marx was a materialist. He emphasized imperialism. In the original, Marx did not do this, and this line is an example. You should make a note and underline it in bold letters. I am repeating. Marx conceived of society in a very different way, emphasizing the material conditions of people's lives. Here the emphasis is on material conditions of people's lives. Peoples are important, not the material conditions. You got a difference, the finer nuance difference. He is not saying that material conditions of society are the base. He is saying that the material conditions of people's lives is the base. And the rest is superstructure. A little later I will explain what he means by this. But first let me complete what I have prepared for today's lecture. Marx conceived of society in a very different way, emphasizing the material conditions of people's lives and the fundamental importance of history. Now, his concept of history is very different from the concept of history given by the German idealist philosopher Hegel, or philosophers of history in Western Europe since 18th century. Unlike others who think that history is guided to a large extent by impersonal forces of nature, planetary positions, and the brute logic of materialist forces, represented primarily today by the mathematical logic of capitalist development. Unlike this view, or against this view, or in response to this view, Karl Marx emphasized, and I am neither endorsing nor rejecting his view, I am just presenting as it is in the original writings of Karl Marx, that history is made by man. History is the product of man's collective lives. He saw himself, Marx saw himself as the scientist of society and the development of social forms, just like Imai Durkheim and his so-called guru Auguste Comte also claimed. As a result, the commentators have clubbed the three together, Auguste Comte, Imai Durkheim and Karl Marx, as positivist, a school in social sciences which developed in 19th century. In the history of European knowledge systems, there has been a steady displacement of medieval Christian, that was Catholic Christianity, because in medieval times there was no Protestant movement. I am repeating. In the history of European knowledge systems, there has been a steady displacement of medieval Christian understanding of earth and human-centric universe and cosmos. This is called humanism by European thinkers post-European Enlightenment of 18th century, and there is a lethal critique of this humanism by Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer of critical school, who are usually regarded as neo-Marxists. But the root is there in not only Marx but other people. Let us come to the point again. In this displacement, physicist Galileo, biologist Darwin, philosopher Karl Marx, psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud, and Albert Einstein played a paradigmatic role. With Galileo came the realization that the earth is not the center of the universe, but it is just one planet amongst many in one solar system amongst many. What was the view earlier? In medieval Europe, in the teachings of the Catholic fathers, that the earth is the system of universe or cosmos, and the sun revolves around the earth. And there is only one earth and only one sun, and Jesus Christ is the son of S-O-N, son of sun, S-U-N, sun. This view was challenged by Galileo, and Galileo said that there is not only one solar system, but there are many solar systems in the galaxy or the cosmos, and it is the earth which moves around, revolves around the sun, and not the other way around. With Darwin came the realization that humanity is not the center of creation, but one development amongst others in the course of a long process of evolution. What was the view? The view was that everything on earth had been made for the consumption of earth. Terribly sorry. The earlier view was that everything on earth is for the consumption of man, in capital letters M-A-A-N. Why man in capital letters? Because in medieval times, everybody who looked anatomically and physiologically the same was not considered man. There was a concept of fully developed civilizational man, which was restricted to only white Christians of Western Europe, followed by the less developed religions like Judaism and Islam found in Europe then. There were barbarians of Asia and savages of Africa, followed by the human machines or slaves bought in the slave market of the ancient and medieval worlds. And the ideological root of both capitalism and colonization is rooted in this concept of medieval concept of Christianity with capital letters M-A-A-N. Therefore, European man was a religious concept which which was structurally retained even after modernity. Only it was given a Protestant version and it was called secular. But whether they are Catholics or the seculars, which is a pseudo name for Protestants, Christians. It is another matter that fools working in university and the academic college of Western masters in Western universities of Europe and America do not understand the historical dynamics of the genealogy of the terms, including modernity, development, progress, civilization. Yes, we have finished Galileo and Darwin. With Marx came the realization that human beings are not the creators of society, but are creatures of society. The product of the social world into which they are born. Now, what is the difference between Marx's concept of society? He considers that society is not the creation of man or individual beings, individually or collectively. Rather, human beings are creatures of society. Rather, society creates man. But what is Marx's concept of history? Marx said that unlike society, history is created by man. Okay, now let us come to Sigmund Freud. With Freud came the understanding that the human individual is the product of unconscious forces and these unconscious forces are not fully in control of man himself or herself. Now, this argument of Sigmund Freud was developed parallelly by Italian sociologist and economist Wilfred Pareto, where his term for unconscious forces is residues, and there is a debate who developed this idea first, Sigmund Freud and Wilfred Pareto, and there is no agreement in the academia so far. But let us not go into this controversy. Let us come to Albert Einstein's Before Albert Einstein, all social sciences, all humanities, and all natural sciences and physical sciences believed in the Newtonian concept of space and time. As I said in one of the earlier classes, Isaac Newton was not a secular scientist. Whether you take academic understanding of secular and Protestantism, he was very much a Catholic father of Anglican Church. Some of the views differed from the Orthodox views of official Anglican Church, which was then a part of the Catholic Church or Roman Catholic world. Nonetheless, in case you read all his books, including Principia Mathematica, which is usually regarded as the foundation of natural and physical sciences in the modern world, there is no doubt that the Newtonian concept of space and time is not fundamentally different from the Catholic concept of space and time. There is a Indian sociologist. He was my teacher when I was a student of Delhi School of Economics. His name is J.T.S. Roy. And since 1967, till 2004, he is still alive, and he came up with a book which is a collection of his major writings. It has the same title, which is the title of Wilfred Pareto's book, Mind and Society. All major writings of J.P.S. Roy, except two, Politics of Bulari, which is about Proviender Islands, ethnography of Bronisław Malinowski, and his second work, which is the only work he wrote about India, namely Religion, Civil Society, and the State. Subtitle is the study of Sikhism. He had one major article, Science and Swaraj, written in 1967, and three major works between 1978 and 2004. And all the three books are about culture and science. The first book, published in 19 78 is titled as Science and Culture, and the second book is titled as The Other Mind of Europe, The Other Mind of Europe, Goethe or Goethe as a scientist. And the third book is European Modernity. In case you read the three books together, you will understand two things. Number one, all the major social scientists before Marcel Mauss and Claude Lévi-Strauss were influenced by Isaac Newton, and Isaac Newton was not the best scientist Europe had before Albert Einstein. In his sophisticated language of engineering, yes, J.P.A. Suberai and Max Weber both were trained as engineers, and then they came to sociology or social sciences. Now, what was that concept of Newton? About space and time, which every major social scientist borrowed. Including Karl Marx, Max Weber, and even Emile Durkheim before the publication of Primitive Classification, which he wrote with his nephew Marcel Mauss. Now, this concept of Newtonian concept of space and time was challenged by Albert Einstein in a series of celebrated articles in the professional journals of physics. There is a popular notion which has no foundation that Einstein gave the concept of relativity. The concept of relativity was given for the first time by Isaac Newton himself. Then what is special about Albert Einstein? In case some of you are interested to read during this semester or later on in your life, and even if you are not trained in the language of physics, I will recommend two of his very popular books written for the lay persons like me and you. One is a small booklet, The World as I See It by Albert Einstein, and second is Ideas and Opinions. But in his professional celebrated articles for which he got Nobel Prize, he developed a special theory of relativity, not theory of relativity, a special theory of reality. Like Durkheim has a theory of suicide rate and not a theory of suicide. Like, Marx was not a materialist, rather, he gave a materialist interpretations of history in which human beings played a very important role of mediator. Albert Einstein said that time and space are relative terms, and this relativity is, not only relativity of time in the context of astronomy, that is regarding the transits of planets in the galaxy, rather the concept of time and space is also culturally different. Secondly, he said that time is not unilinear, rather, time is circular like the circular earth. The biblical belief or the Christian belief was that earth is flat, whereas earth is round. Not round as a circle, but round as an orange. In case you have seen orange, it is available in the market these days. Therefore, earth is, circular like orange, and time is culturally relative as well as, it is also, cyclical. There is a cycle of time, spiral time, and also a spiral space. For example, in the households in which all of us live, there is a classification of space and time. For example, there is a kitchen which is regarded sacred and pure. Now, purity is a concept which is not there in the concept of sacred and profane in Durkheim, but purity and pollution are much more important terms in one of the followers of Durkheim via Levi-Strauss, namely Louis Dumont in his book Homo Hierarchicus. Now, in your home or my home or anybody's home, every space in our house is not the same. There are culturally pure spaces like kitchen and puja room, that is a place where you or your parents worship, including those who are Marxists. They worship Karl Marx, and this is not me. I am not a very original person. I am a traditional person, and in tradition there is no originality. There is no author of the book in tradition. Therefore, we do not know who wrote the Vedas, who wrote, the Quran, who wrote Bhagavad Gita, who wrote the Bible. These are considered revealed books. Revelation is a Semitic term of Abrahamic religions. In case you want to use a different term, I will not say secular term, different term, because secular is Protestant. Uh, I will say that these books are not written by one person in one space and one time. Rather, these sacred books or sacred representations evolved over a period of time, and this evolution was not unilinear. This concept of space and time, you can check in your, house. In case you are living in a hostel, even in JNU hostels, you are not supposed to urinate in the dining hall, or you are not supposed to worship or make your food in the latrine. This is Albert Einstein. And Arnold Toynbee said that who said Marxism is anti-religion? Marxism is a religion in itself. And in case you take one paragraph from Marxism, that is the Communist Manifesto, one paragraph from Quran, one paragraph from the Bible, one paragraph from Hindu Puranas, Quran, Bible, or even one paragraph from our religion, Buddhism, and one paragraph from Communist Manifesto, and mix them in a pot. And most learned people will not be able to make a sense, whether it is from Marxism, or it is from Islam, or it is from Hinduism, or it is from Christianism, it is from Protestantism, or Catholicism, or Hinduism, or Buddhism, or Sikhism, or whatever. So far as structural logic goes, all collective representations, whether they are from so-called recognized religions or so-called unrecognized religions like Marxism or fundamentalism or terrorism of any variety, they are one and the same thing. Of course, this is a controversial statement, but here we are not going to make controversy. Rather, I am requesting all of you, including myself, to introspect whether this concept of us and them, he and she, human beings and non-human beings, earth and sun, is rooted in reality as it is, or it is a product of our culture, our socialization, our training, our schooling. Think about it, and let us come to where I left you in my last class. I had read 5 points which I will read it again with some additions. The first point was Marx's Capital explained ruthlessly and irresistibly that at least in the capitalist mode of production found in his time, and he died in 1883, there is a mathematical logic of capitalist growth. And this mathematical logic can be translated in social science language as inevitable, objective, not subjective, impulse to growth which characterizes production for private profit. This was called Marx, I will add, or national profit. For example, we know that unemployment is rising everywhere. We know that poor are becoming poorer everywhere, and rich are becoming richer everywhere, not only in Europe and United States of America, but also in China, in Russia, and India, and Pakistan, and Iran, and Turkey, and in Bangladesh, or anywhere else. What is that logic which is still relevant in Marx? Much has flown in the river Ganges or Nile or Amazon. But Marx's, conceptualization has remained the same. In case you follow the industrial mode of production, there has to be a mathematical logic of growth. Whether it is capitalism of Marx's time, or it is national capitalism of China, or cultural nationalism of India, or cultural nationalism of Russia, nationalism of contemporary Turkey, or Bangladesh, or Islamic democracy of Pakistan. Growth is measured in quantitative terms. Therefore, why Comrade Jinping is proud of China's growth story, the miracle? Everybody knows, including Comrade Jinping, that 90% Chinese are very poor, very exploited. But the gross domestic income of China is growing. Now, in this gross domestic income, GD, gross domestic product, GDP, there is no data about how this growth of the nation is distributed among the people. This insight of Karl Marx is still relevant, although Marxism is discredited and for the good reasons everywhere else. But Marx as a sociological theorist is still relevant to understand the world around us everywhere. Thank you.